My sister and I are twins from the same birth, yet a high monk asserted that I am the reincarnation of a fox demon, destined to become a bewitching consort who would lead the ruler astray. My family concealed my true identity and sent me to Fa Temple to cultivate a pure heart through spiritual practice. In the 16th year of my secluded cultivation, I had almost forgotten I was a demon, only wanting to be a good person. But at that moment, the Empress, who held the Emperor's favor above all others in the 6 palaces, had a dream in which she saw herself being stripped of her phoenix throne in the future by a woman of the Shen family. Thus, my sister, who was about to be married, was repeatedly violated by bandits and died an innocent, tragic death. I held her corpse in my arms, weeping until not a single tear remained. 3 months later, the Emperor went up the mountain to pray for blessings and fell in love with me at first sight. He asked if I would be willing to return to the palace with him. I thought, the title of calamitous imperial consort, I must live up to it. After serving him in the bedchamber for many consecutive days, the Empress grew increasingly displeased with me. Good morning today. She found some random excuse to accuse me of disrespect and banished me to the Buddhist hall under house arrest. Since Ling Fei was once a practitioner, these next few days, go to the Buddhist hall and pray well on my behalf. Jiang Ruowei harbors an inexplicable hostility toward me, always sparing no effort to suppress me. From the moment she first laid eyes on me, she was so frightened that her face turned deathly pale, and at night, she suffered from several consecutive nights of nightmares. She had a premonition. My appearance not only threatened to divide the Emperor's favor but also made her sense a hint of danger. To dispel her doubts, she sent people to secretly investigate my background several times. But without exception, all efforts came to nothing. Indeed, her ominous premonition was entirely correct. I entered the palace. I came to claim her life. I knelt in the prayer hall, adding lamp oil to the eternal flame on the altar, silently reciting the prayer. In a fleeting moment of daze, I seemed to see an old friend through the candlelight. 16 years ago, the Shen family welcomed a pair of twin sisters, just as the entire household was preparing to celebrate. A passing eminent monk left behind a prophecy. He said I was a fox spirit reincarnated, destined to become a bewitching consort who would lead the ruler astray. Fox spirits, at their mildest, could enchant hearts and bring ruin with their beauty. At their worst, they could topple kingdoms, wipe out clans, and plunge the world into chaos. The news was immediately suppressed. My parents, in their anguish, concealed my identity and sent me to cultivate on a mountain. It was publicly claimed that they only had one daughter, Shen Xiue. Thus, I grew up in Fa Temple. Although I could not be recognized as part of the family, my parents still loved me dearly, and my sister was especially close to me, often visiting under the pretense of worshipping Buddha and offering incense. She would often hold me in her arms and shed tears. What nonsense about being a fox spirit reincarnated. It's all utter rubbish. To think they'd make my sister come here to suffer. Woo-woo. But sister, I really am one. I glanced around to make sure no one was watching, then quietly raised 2 fluffy ears, white fox ears, with a hint of pink at the tips. She covered my head with a sack and cried even harder. Hurry up and hide. If anyone finds you, they'll catch you and stew you for dinner. I promised my sister that I would be a good monster, no, a good person. I will never use my magical powers to harm anyone. The 2 of us sat side by side beneath the Bodhi tree. I closed my eyes and silently chanted the incantation. In no time at all, a sparrow came bearing a willow wreath, which settled gently upon her head. I blinked. Sister, do I look like a good person now? She rushed over and hugged me. My little sister is the very best sister in the whole wide world. The 2 of them laughed and chased each other under the brilliant sunlight. Before sunset, I bid her farewell. Sister, next time you come, I'll show you the twin lotus flowers blooming together. But my sister never got to see the day the twin lotus flowers bloomed. She died on her way up the mountain to see me, ravaged by marauding bandits in turn, left to rot in the wilderness. Her eyes remained wide open in death. In her luggage were my favorite pastries. She had a sweetheart, the second son of Minister Chen, and they were deeply in love, with their wedding day drawing near, all because of a single dream the empress had. Jiang Ruowei, born into nobility, grew up with Pei Jing since childhood, their bond deep and affectionate. Since the new emperor ascended the throne, she had been the most favored in the entire harem. Yet in the dream, a voice told her that her position as empress and even her life would one day be taken by a woman from the Shen family. So, she secretly sent someone to kill her sister, thus eliminating the threat once and for all. I wept uncontrollably, fainting several times. My sister was the brightest and gentlest of women. How could she die in such a humiliating manner? The matter was reported to the Dali Temple. My father was only a minor fourth-rank official, while the chief minister of the Dali Temple was a partisan of the empress's father and brothers. They were all in cahoots, and the officials handling the case merely went through the motions, hastily closing the investigation. Grief, despair, to the point of heartbreak, I no longer wept in vain, wiping away my last tear. Look, sister. The fox demon has never committed any evil deeds, yet the wicked remain at large. The wheel of heaven's justice turns. But I cannot wait, then I shall fulfill the prophecy of the high monk, to bewitch the ruler's heart and bring calamity upon the world. As a fox demon, it was no difficult task to catch the emperor's attention. Fahua Temple was the national temple, and Pei Jing would come here every year to offer incense and pray for blessings. I timed his movements perfectly. Waiting on the path he had to take back to his meditation room for rest, as he approached, I accidentally met his gaze. He was done for. I am determined to succeed. Pei Jing indeed noticed me, however. He was so lost in his gaze that he stumbled and fell straight into the water with a loud splash. I gasped in surprise and, before the hidden guards could react, leaped into the water and swam over to rescue him. Worriedly said, "Benefactor, are you all right?" After coming ashore. He couldn't take his eyes off me, even forgetting to take the cloak handed to him by the hidden guard. "Tell me, what is your name?" I was stunned for a moment, then immediately broke into a smile. "My name is Lingji." Pei Jing fell for me at first sight and tried every means to bring me back to the palace. The empress, who loved to put on a show of generosity and virtue in front of him, had no objection to taking a concubine, but the moment she laid eyes on me, she stumbled back in fright, a chill running down her spine. My sister and I were born different. She was bright and gentle, while I was the type they'd call a seductive troublemaker. Yet, as twin sisters, there was still a certain resemblance in the bone structure. She was nearly driven mad with anxiety, doing everything she could to stop him. "Your Majesty, you are being foolish. How can you bring a monk who has taken refuge in Buddhism back to the palace?" She thought invoking Buddhist teachings would be enough to deter the emperor. But Pei Jing was the son of heaven. He cared nothing for monastic rules or regulations. The words of the Son of Heaven are the principles of heaven. The emperor had made up his mind, but the empress firmly opposed him, leaving the two at an impasse and creating a rift between them. I will take advantage of the chaos to add fuel to the fire. In the dead of night, I walked to the lotus pond and silently chanted incantations. The next day, news of the twin lotus flowers blooming in full splendor stirred the entire Fahua Temple. Someone exclaimed in awe, "Truly an auspicious omen that comes once in 100 years." An official flatteringly offered his words. Legend has it that the blooming of twin lotus flowers signifies a blessed union, a joyous occasion for our great Liang. "Congratulations, Your Majesty." The empress was so furious she nearly lost her composure on the spot, pointing at me and saying, "As a member of the monastic order, you are impure in mind and heart, with improper intentions, seducing His Majesty. You are a disgrace to the Buddhist community." Master Jingyan shielded me behind her and stepped forward to bow. Your Majesty, the Empress, I must ask you to choose your words with care. The Fa Temple is a national temple, known for its pure and upright atmosphere. It was on that day when His Majesty accidentally fell into the water that my disciple, Lingji, could not bear to see him suffer and stepped forward to rescue him, thus earning His Majesty's favor. It is not as your Majesty has suggested, that she harbors ill intentions. She then bowed to Peijing, Your Majesty. For a monastic to keep their hair while cultivating signifies that their worldly ties are not yet severed and their heart still holds attachments. Lingji has been cultivating with her hair at our temple for over a decade, which must have been destined by heaven, waiting here for the one fated to cross her path. Today, indeed, the Buddha has manifested his will before us. I silently watched my master's receding figure. A wave of bitterness welled up in my heart. She once taught me to be compassionate and not harbor thoughts of killing, yet now, she is willing to lend a hand in my quest for revenge. First, there were auspicious signs, followed by the abbot's words. The Empress was left speechless. At this point, the matter was already settled. Peijing laughed heartily. Excellent. Truly a match made in heaven. He reached out his hand to me. Are you willing to return to the palace with me? The sunlight was brilliant, and no one saw the raging flames of vengeance burning in my eyes. I lowered my gaze and placed my hand in his. Lingji, I am willing. Every time Peijing rested at my place, Jiang Ruowei would fall ill with one ailment after another, be it headaches, fevers, heart palpitations, or nightmares, as if she were on the brink of death, sending people to summon him. When the palace attendant came in to report, Peijing was in the midst of reviewing memorials. Meanwhile, I was lying inside the bed curtains, hugging a huge round pillow with both hands and feet, rolling and tumbling around playfully. Her Majesty the Queen is suffering from a headache. Would your Majesty go and see her? Peijing did not answer immediately, resting his head on his hand as he fell into deep thought. I knew what he was hesitating about. The Queen was his childhood sweetheart, while I was the one who captured his heart at first sight. Now, with a new love in my arms, an old love stands in the way. He set down his brush and looked toward the bed curtains. Does Aji wish for me to visit the Empress? He wanted to see me vie for his affection out of jealousy. That certainly could not go as he wished. I slipped out of bed barefoot, pattered over to the writing desk, and performed a somewhat less than perfect curtsy. Your humble consort respectfully bids farewell to your Majesty, not expecting such a response from me. A flicker of displeasure crossed Peijing's face. He pinched my chin. Is Aji so eager to see me leave, not even willing to vie for my favor? I looked at him with wide, eager eyes. What does it mean to vie for favor? He was taken aback. You don't know. I shook my head and explained earnestly. Before your Majesty, Aji had never spoken to any man, let alone vying for favor. Peijing's breath hitched slightly, his voice trembling a little. Really, really. My master forbids us disciples from interacting with men outside. If your Majesty hadn't fallen into the water right before my eyes that day, I wouldn't have rushed to save you, nor would I have told you my name. With that, I shot him a glance that was both reproachful and coquettish. It's all your Majesty's fault for making Aji break the rules. The gloom that had clouded Peijing's face moments earlier vanished completely. Even though he was an emperor, he was no different from all those foolish men in the world. They all sought a sense of achievement from women. If you gave them any kind of first time, they would feel immense satisfaction and pride. He sent the people sent by the Empress away, then lifted me into his arms and laughed heartily. All right. It was my fault for making Aji break the rules. Tonight, I shall make it up to you properly. In the past, the record for the most favored concubine in the harem was 3 months. Yet I have remained in favor without decline, having lived for thousands of years. If I didn't have a few tricks to keep people in check, how could I ever face the esteemed elders of the Fox clan in the future? For example, his harem consorts were mostly well-bred young ladies from prestigious families. Trained in the ways of nobility, they were reserved, gentle, and graceful, but also rigid and dull. They feared and obeyed Pei Jing, but I wasn't afraid. Not only did I dare to talk back to him, but I also dared to kick him off the bed. He was so angry that he laughed. Throughout the entire palace, everyone looks up to me, fears me, and flatters me. Only you, my beloved consort, dare to show me such a face. And what of it? I was utterly unceremonious, swallowing the lychee he had peeled and fed me in one gulp, leaning back on the couch and laughing heartily. Aren't they all calling me a fox spirit behind my back? Then of course I belong to the fox. Unlike them, who belong to the dog. Another example, the beauties of the harem are heavily made up, vying to outshine each other. I have grown tired of the dazzling array of colors, yet I insist on being pure and simple to the end, wearing a pure white dress, dancing under the moonlight. As the saying goes, to be charming, one must be in mourning attire. Isn't that right? Moreover, this will better evoke his memories of our first meeting, a bewitching beauty, clad in a snow-white monk's robe. First encounter by the pond, a fleeting glimpse of breathtaking beauty. The young ladies in the harem were so jealous their teeth ached, gathering together to curse me fiercely. "Pa, that vixen, pretending to be pure and harmless, who doesn't know what she's really thinking. Even if she told us her lowly tricks, we'd never stoop to using them." Exactly. But not many days later, some among them turned traitor. They began to imitate my style of dress, dancing gracefully before the flowers, under the moonlight, or on the path the emperor had to take after court. Within a few days, more and more concubines in the palace were wearing white dresses and dancing. Pei Jing finally couldn't take it anymore and scolded, "What on earth are you all trying to do? This is the imperial palace, not a place for mourning. If there is a next time, all of you will be banished from the palace." After that, no one could stand in my way. Pei Jing doted on me to the extreme, taking me with him wherever he went. I was constantly by his side, attending banquets and sharing his leisure, accompanying him on spring outings and monopolizing his nights, truly becoming a bewitching consort who captivated the emperor's heart. The empress no longer deliberately targeted me, allowing my influence to grow day by day, but I knew she would not let the matter rest. Beneath the calm surface, a greater storm was brewing. I have been waiting for it for a long time. At the Mid-Autumn Palace banquet, I planned to perform a dance in front of everyone. Before the banquet began, I was in my bedchamber preparing to change clothes. A young palace maid from the Imperial Wardrobe Bureau entered, knelt before me with a thud, her voice tinged with tears. "We are guilty, Your Majesty. We accidentally damaged your dance gown while ironing it, and by the time we realized it, it was already too late to fix it." Her shoulders trembled uncontrollably as she spoke, her head bowed so low that her face was hidden from view. She held the wooden box out before me. "Your Highness, this is the only dance dress in the entire palace that suits you." I had no desire to treat human lives as worthless. Casually venting my anger by punishing servants, he simply rubbed his temples and waved her off. "I understand. This little incident caused me to be delayed for a while." By the time I arrived, everyone was already seated. In an instant, the great hall fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. I was dressed in a long jade-green gown, its hem adorned with peacock feathers and golden threads, shimmering brilliantly under the bright lights and candle flames of the hall, each step radiating splendor. It was at this very moment that the sudden change occurred. Jiang Ruowei's face showed a look of shock. "This, oh my heavens!" She quickly knelt down to plead for mercy. "Your Majesty, Sister Lingfei surely did not mean to offend intentionally. Please forgive her." The Empress Dowager stared in astonishment. "Qingyun, is that you?" Pei Jing's expression darkened inch by inch, turning as black as ink. What they were referring to was Pei Jing's birth mother, the late Emperor's concubine, Consort.He Qingyun, and this dance dress was named the Peacock Gold Gown. It was Consort.He's most beloved garment during her lifetime. Consort.He was once a highly favored imperial consort at the peak of her influence. Pei Jing's most vivid childhood memory was of his mother, the imperial consort, dressed in a peacock feather golden gown, dancing the peacock plume dance under the moonlight, while his father, the emperor, strummed the strings in accompaniment. The harmonious duet between emperor and consort became a celebrated tale of their time. Later, Consort.He was framed for practicing witchcraft and was banished to the cold palace by the late emperor, her beauty fading away. Even Pei Jing, the crown prince, fell out of favor and was neglected, nearly losing his position. Before her wrongful death, she donned the peacock feather golden gown, murmuring the late emperor's name, hoping to see him one last time. Yet the late emperor would not even deign to cast a glance her way. With the passing of Consort.He, the peacock feather dance she personally choreographed was lost to time, never to be known again. It was not until many years later that her name was finally cleared. After Pei Jing ascended the throne, he posthumously honored her with the title of Empress Dowager. This past event remains the darkest memory in Pei Jing's heart, a forbidden topic that no one dares to touch. And now, I appear at this palace banquet wearing the peacock gold gown that Consort.He loved most in her lifetime. Truly, even 10,000 deaths would not atone for my crime. The empress stands beside Pei Jing, quietly observing his expression. Seeing him remain silent, his face terrifyingly dark, a flicker of delight flashes in her eyes. Then he pointed at me and shouted loudly, "Audacious enchantress, usually you bewitch the emperor with your seductive charms, and we let it slide. But today, you dare to publicly insult the late Empress Dowager, truly an unforgivable crime. Guards, strip her of her clothes at once and seize this sorceress." So this is where the trap was set for me. 2 guards stepped forward, seizing me from both sides. I struggled free with all my might, neither admitting fault nor kneeling down. Whoosh! The hem of my skirt fluttered and spread out like the feathers of a sparrow. I steadied my strength, bent my waist, lifted my leg, and extended my arm, dancing out the first movement. Perhaps they had never seen someone as unrestrained as me before. The 2 guards were somewhat at a loss, exchanging a glance, wanting to step forward and restrain me again. "Stop!" Pei Jing's expression stiffened, and he coldly rebuked the guards. "Step back." The reason was none other. The dance I performed was none other than the peacock feather dance, once performed by Consort.He. The palace banquet returned to its orderly rhythm, and the musicians once again picked up their instruments to play for me. The bells chimed. Like jade shattering on Kunlun Mountain, like fragrant orchids weeping with dew, the water sleeves soared, the long skirts fluttered, and lotus blossoms bloomed beneath my steps. The room was filled with dazzling brilliance, radiant and blinding. As the dance ended, Pei Jing descended from the high platform, staring at me in a daze. Actually, I bowed deeply in reverence. "Your Majesty, I have been having the same dream for the past few days. In the dream, a kind and beautiful lady taught me a dance. She said she hoped I could perform it before you. I know my dancing cannot compare to even a fraction of that lady's grace, but her sincerity and earnest request moved me deeply. That is why I dared to present this humble performance at the palace banquet. Little did I know that the lady in my dream was actually your Majesty's late mother, and the peacock feather gown I am wearing was her most cherished possession. It must be that the late Empress Dowager misses you so dearly that the heavens were moved, leading to all these coincidences today, allowing me to recreate her breathtaking dance and elegance from years past. Jiang Ruowei, are you the only one who can invoke the late Empress Dowager? I can too. No one could have imagined how I managed to perform this long-lost peacock feather dance. Consort.He is skilled in music and fond of dance, often studying ancient texts to restore long-lost melodies and dances. Over 2,000 years ago, the people of the Chu state enjoyed imitating the habits of various animals and choreographing them into dances. The most elegant and beautiful among them was the peacock dance, to highlight their status. The nobles of Chu decreed that the peacock dance could only be appreciated by the aristocracy and was not allowed to spread among the common people, 2,000 years ago. I was the beloved pet of the king of Chu, absorbing dragon energy to strengthen my cultivation. After Empress Wei recreated the peacock dance, she made only a few minor modifications to certain details, choreographing it into the feather dance. Time has passed, and Pei Jing's memory of his mother's dance has long since faded, making it impossible to delve into the details. In his eyes, these two dances were almost indistinguishable, which is why I was fortunate enough to slip through. He gently helped me to my feet. Since you share a connection with the late Empress, I shall bestow upon you the same honor she once received, attendance. Hear my decree. Consort Ling has greatly pleased me and shall henceforth be elevated to the rank of noble consort. Your Majesty, this must not be. Jiang Ruowei stepped forward to intervene. Consort Ling has no children of her own. To elevate her to the rank of noble consort without such a precedent, our dynasty has never seen such a thing before. And why not? Pei Jing shot a sharp glare over. Does the Empress have grievances against me, or against my birth mother? She lowered her head in panic. I dare not, Your Majesty. I bowed deeply in gratitude. As I tried to stand up, my vision suddenly went dark, and my legs gave way uncontrollably. Pei Jing quickly steadied me, scooping me up in his arms. You've lost weight. He gave me a gentle bounce in his arms, then pressed his forehead against mine, his tone full of affection. Haven't you been eating well lately? The palace maid, Liu Hua, spoke up at the right moment. Your Majesty has been practicing dance diligently these past few days, often forgetting to eat and sleep. No matter how much I tried to persuade her, she wouldn't listen. Pei Jing carried me back to the dragon throne, pressing me firmly onto his lap without allowing any refusal. Then sit by my side, and I'll watch you eat properly, Your Majesty. This is against protocol. Amidst the laughter, I caught sight of Jiang Ruowei from the corner of my eye. The grand hall was brilliantly lit, as bright as day, yet her complexion seemed to wither inch by inch under the glow of the candlelight. As the poem goes, when the palm dance ends and the flute falls silent, the autumn nights stretch long through 36 palaces. Tonight, a certain group of people is destined to lose sleep. In the end, I never became that imperial consort. The Empress changed her tactics. On the surface, she no longer opposed me at every turn or provoked the Emperor's displeasure. Instead, she became gentle, considerate, and understanding toward her husband. Coinciding with this, her brother had achieved merit in suppressing bandits and quelling unrest. For several days in a row, Pei Jing visited her palace and bestowed many gifts upon her. The two had cleared away their previous grievances, returning to the deep affection they once shared as a devoted couple. I deliberately picked a fight and made a big scene over it. Your Majesty knows full well that it was the Empress who orchestrated the incident at the palace banquet. Instead of standing up for your humble consort, you continue to shower her with such favor. Pei Jing hugged me from behind, explaining in a gentle and patient tone, Aji, don't be unreasonable. The court and the harem are intertwined. I must always consider the bigger picture. I pushed him away without mercy. I have caught a chill and am feeling unwell. Your Majesty, it would be best for you to go to the Empress instead, lest I pass this illness on to you. Pei Jing was an emperor high above all others. No matter how much he favored a consort, he could not tolerate being slighted in such a manner. All the palace servants knelt down, the atmosphere unbearably oppressive. The snort of derision. The Empress is right. I have indeed been too indulgent with you. The day after tomorrow is the ceremony for the imperial consort's investiture. Since you're not feeling well, you need not attend. I was left out in the cold. Pei Jing deliberately wanted to show me, so he began to treat the Empress with extra kindness, sending her more gold, silver, calligraphy, and paintings. showering her with exclusive favor day and night. For a whole month, he never mentioned me. Nor did he come to see me. This is exactly the result I wanted. First, since the last palace banquet, the Empress has become increasingly cautious in her actions. If I want to find her weaknesses, I must first fuel her arrogance. Second, my sister's birthday is just a week away, and during this time, I don't want to be disturbed. It would be best if no one bothered me at all. These days, I have shut myself in the prayer hall, wholeheartedly worshipping Buddha, reciting sutras, and copying scriptures. One day, as I knelt on the prayer cushion, I accidentally dozed off. Amidst the swirling incense smoke, my sister emerged from the faint, curling mist and entered my dream. Her face was filled with sorrow, and the first words she spoke were, "Sister, you've changed." My heart leaped into my throat. I promised her I would be a good person. Could it be, she's disappointed in me? I tried my best to defend myself. "Sister, are you saying I've become heartless?" "I promise you, I will never harm the innocent. But as for Jiang Ruowei, I will never let her go. I will make her pay with her life for what she did to you." She shook her head, her fingers fell upon my deeply furrowed brow, gently stroking it, her voice choked with emotion. "You've become less inclined to smile, my dear sister. These past days must have been very difficult for you. I know you carry the burden of my vengeance with you. But, sister, I wish even more for you to live happily and smile more often." The tension that had been building for so long suddenly snapped, carrying immense pain and hatred. I walked alone, treading on thin ice. I dared not relax, planning day and night. I spoke words against my will and did things against my conscience. Today, meeting in a dream, I could finally remove my mask and let down my guard. I threw myself into her cold embrace and cried my heart out. "Sister, I hate the aura these people carry. The smell of them makes me want to vomit. I don't like this life here at all. What should I do? I am truly so very tired. For the past month, I have done nothing but sleep, eat, chant sutras, and worship the Buddha." Liu Hua could no longer stand by and watch. "Your Highness, you cannot continue to remain so detached from the world. What if His Majesty one day forgets all about you? There are many stories of those who rely on their looks to please others, only to find that as their beauty fades, so does the affection they once received." I rolled out of bed, casually brushed my hair aside, and lifted my face. "What did you say? Come on, look at my face and say what you just said again." She suddenly fell silent. To put it bluntly, the reason our fox demon clan has thrived and dominated the world is all thanks to this face. Liu Hua came to sit by the edge of the bed, holding me tightly and rubbing against me vigorously. "But, Your Majesty, even if the Emperor doesn't forget you, which servant in this palace isn't fawning on the powerful and bullying the weak? Just look at the dishes the Imperial kitchen has been sending these past few days. There's hardly any meat left." I fell silent for a moment. What she said makes so much sense. Seeing my attitude soften slightly, Liu Hua pressed on, appealing to both reason and emotion. "Good mother, for the sake of us having meat to eat, please think of a way to soften up and make peace with His Majesty." I nodded. I lifted my nose and sniffed carefully. The air was thick with a damp scent. Based on my 1,000 years of life experience, I could tell that tonight there would definitely be a thunderstorm. I crawled out from under the covers, wrapped my arms around Liu Hua's neck, and whispered a few words to her. She looked puzzled. "What does Your Majesty need these things for?" "Naturally, I'm going to do something befitting of a seductive consort," the eunuch by Pei Jing's side announced. "Your Majesty, the tea room has prepared a fresh pot of tea for you." He looked up and saw me dressed in a palace maid's attire, my face hidden behind a fox mask. "Well, come and serve me." He had already guessed it was me. No one else in the entire harem would use such methods, nor would anyone dare to sacrifice their dignity like this. Yet he did not expose me, instead playing along with great interest. Anticipating what new tricks I would play today, I obediently stepped forward and filled the teacup. Pei Jing was busy reviewing memorials and didn't look closely. He picked up the cup and took a sip, only to spit it out the next second when he sensed something was off. Hiss, pointing at the pot of vinegar. He grimaced from the sourness. What is the meaning of this, my beloved consort? My voice carried a note of defiance. Of course, it's to let your majesty taste the bitterness in my heart. TSK, I heard you've been copying scriptures in the prayer hall almost every day this past month. I thought you'd really learn to behave, he teased while reaching out to remove my white fox mask. Then he froze on the spot. Beneath the mask, my face was drenched in tears, pitiful and fragile. In the past, Pei Jing had grown accustomed to my joys, angers, and whims, but he had never seen me in such a vulnerable state, without a trace of makeup. The shimmering tears in my eyes added a touch of fragility, yet I remained breathtakingly beautiful. What's wrong? He gently tapped my nose. You used to be so clueless you didn't even know how to vie for favor, and now you've learned to be jealous. All of this was taught by your majesty. I wrapped my arms around his waist, carefully trying to please him. Your majesty taught me how to love, so I belong only to your majesty. For the past month, I have been reflecting and repenting before the Buddha, but your majesty still favors others and refuses to see me. I was so heartbroken that I could only think of such a clumsy method. Weakness and tears are the most effective weapons. These past few days, he has been sulking with me. Today, I came to humble myself and win his favor, and I couldn't help but feel restless with anticipation. My breath quickened. My heart pounded fiercely. He lowered his head to seek my lips. I'll give you a chance tonight to let me carefully examine your attitude of repentance. Yet at that moment, I pushed him away again. Today is the 15th. Your majesty should go to the Empress's palace tonight. I'm wearing a palace maid's attire now. If word gets out that you neglected the Empress for a maid, that wouldn't be good. Pei Jing's breath hitched. The voice of the young eunuch outside the door rang out at an inopportune moment. Your Majesty, the Empress has personally prepared the water shield fish soup you love. No matter how much you love a dish, if you eat it repeatedly, there will always come a time when you grow tired of it. I pried open his hand, laughing cheerfully. Your Majesty, you should hurry along. The Empress is already growing anxious. Flirt and run, no responsibility taken. Leaving Pei Jing alone, scratching his heart and liver in frustration. A wife is not as good as a concubine. A concubine is not as good as a stolen affair, and a stolen affair is not as good as one that cannot be stolen. When he goes to Jiang Ruowei's place tonight, he'll be absent-minded. Pei Jing was sitting in Jiang Ruowei's bedchamber, eating the water shield and fish soup he had been having for a month straight. Finding it as tasteless as chewing wax, after the meal, it was time to retire for the night. Outside the window, a fierce wind suddenly rose, and dark clouds gathered and surged. A flash of lightning tore through the gloomy sky, illuminating it completely, followed immediately by a massive thunderclap crashing down. Jiang Ruowei buried her head in his embrace. Your Majesty, do you remember? I am most afraid of thunder. Pei Jing had no mood to care about anything else. He absent-mindedly comforted her with a few words, then turned around, his mind once again filled with my pale, tear-streaked face from earlier in the day. Jiang Ruowei was puzzled. Your Majesty, why are you here tonight? The loud cries for help from outside the door interrupted her. Your Majesty, Her Majesty the Empress, Lingfei's palace is on fire. Just back from the imperial study, I shut myself in my room, gathering my energy and focus, accumulating magical power. A mere honey trap alone is not enough. Demonic energy gathered on the rooftop, drawing down a bolt of heavenly thunder. Upon hearing the news, Pei Jing, disregarding Jiang Ruowei's attempts to hold him back, threw on his clothes and rushed out into the rainy night. When he hurriedly arrived, he saw me drenched and soaked in the rain, still shaken and unsettled. I lifted my head, a smudge of charcoal black on my pale cheek. My eyes filled with panic, like a frightened little animal. I burst into loud sobs. "Your Majesty, I will never argue with you again. I thought I would never see you again just now." He wrapped me in his cloak, his voice gentle and soothing, as if handling a fragile treasure. It is only when one realizes how close they came to losing something that they truly cherish it. Jiang Ruowei never expected that the person she had worked so hard to keep would be so easily drawn away by me. The senior palace maid by her side reported my actions in the imperial study today to her. She was utterly enraged. Her again? How can it be her again? During the day, she bewitches His Majesty, unsettling his mind, and at night, she resorts to such a pitiful act of self-sacrifice. Is she truly this relentless? I want that wretched woman to die a miserable death. To deal with me, the Empress secretly began seeking divine guidance and consulting immortals, placing her hopes in supernatural forces. Hearing that fox spirits excel at bewitching hearts and govern matters of love and affection, she spent a fortune to invite one, devoutly offering worship day and night, out of curiosity. I transformed into my original form at night, followed the scent into her dark chamber, and found the fox demon statue she was worshipping. To my surprise, it looked somewhat familiar, with a massive tail, a body of pure white, and a hint of pink at the tips of its ears. After a brief silence, I laughed so hard that tears were about to stream down my face. Jiang Ruowei had actually gone mad to such an extent, resorting to desperate measures in a moment of crisis. Then she might as well guess again. Who exactly is the fox demon she worships day and night with such devout incense offerings? Jiang Ruowei offered me incense and a peck of pearls. After nightfall, I transformed into my true form and entered her dream. She recognized me, both startled and delighted. "Little fox, are you truly this magical? Able to grant any wish?" I nodded. "Let's see how sincere you are. The more difficult the wish, the more precious the offering required." Jiang Ruowei was the Empress, second only to the Emperor. With her father and brothers holding military power for years and numerous allies in the court, so wealth was within her easy reach, she was determined to succeed. "If you can help me resolve this great trouble in my heart, no matter how much tribute you ask for, I can provide it." I curled my body into a ball, swishing my tail, watching with great interest as she fawned over me with flattery. During the day, she hated me to the bone, yet now she wore a completely different face. Having lived for thousands of years, this is the first time I've encountered something so amusing. I asked with feigned seriousness, "What wish might your highness have?" She pondered for a moment. "First, let me see your capabilities. Start by helping me win back His Majesty's heart." I nodded in agreement. "Agreed. When a person harbors evil thoughts, they give rise to inner demons and lose their rationality. Gradually, they become puppets manipulated by these inner demons." As the autumn hunt approached, I used illusion magic to conjure a white deer and prepared a set of clothes for Jiang Ruowei. In the state of Liang, the white deer was a mythical beast said to descend to the mortal realm only during the reign of a wise and virtuous monarch. Those who managed to hunt it would naturally receive the highest honors and rewards. Overjoyed, Beijing immediately issued an imperial decree for a hunting expedition. Today, Jiang Ruowei had shed her gold and silver jewelry. Casting aside her elaborate palace attire, her long hair was simply tied up with a plain hairpin. Astride her horse, her red skirt fluttered and billowed in the wind, her heroic and spirited demeanor both dazzling and striking. Embodying the proud bearing of a general's daughter, she declared boldly, "Your Majesty, today I must hunt the white deer and claim the top prize." Beijing's eyes lit up as he praised, "The Empress is truly splendid today." Back in the capital, who hadn't heard the legend of Jiang Ruowei disguising herself as a man, dressed in vibrant clothes, riding a spirited horse, her famous sword gleaming like frost, where the hoofbits tread, red sleeves beckon from every tower. Alas, such a radiant beauty, yet her heart is rotten to the core. The journey was bumpy and exhausting. With my frail constitution, by the time we arrived, I was already dizzy from vomiting. Jiang Ruowei, upon hearing this, was naturally overjoyed. If Sister Lingfei is feeling unwell, then rest peacefully in the tent. With me gone, no one will disturb her and Pei Jing's private world. That day, she had a thoroughly enjoyable time. It wasn't until the sunset that she and Pei Jing rode back to the camp on the same horse, returning in high spirits. Behind him, servants led the white deer, while his ears were filled with the praises of his ministers. It could be said that he had stolen the spotlight, had enough fun. Now it's my turn to spoil the mood. Several imperial physicians emerged from my tent, offering their congratulations in unison. Congratulations, Your Majesty, Consort Ling is with child. Upon returning, Jiang Ruowei flew into a tremendous rage. Why must I always be overshadowed by her? Then she thought of me again. She offered a whole chest of gold and made a wish. May the fox spirit bless that her child must not be born. I shook my head. She was puzzled. What does this mean? You can't do it. It's not that I can't, but these things are insufficient. I started spouting nonsense. I see that since the imperial consort became pregnant, she has been surrounded by a purple aura, indicating that this child is of immense importance, a child of destiny. You want to prevent that child from being born, which is to forcibly defy the will of heaven. The cost is extremely high, and this bit of gold is far from enough to make me do this for you. She reacted as if facing a great enemy. What? 3 years ago, Jiang Ruowei had already given birth to the legitimate eldest son, Pei Yu, who had been appointed as the crown prince, and my earlier words hinted to her that if this child were to be born, even her son's position as crown prince would not be secure. This only strengthened her resolve to eliminate the root of the trouble, so she wrote a secret letter to her family, asking them to send the rare treasures from the family vault into the palace. Jiang Ruowei had 3 older brothers, and she was the only daughter in the family, cherished by everyone from top to bottom. Seeing her request in the letter, the Jiang family complied without hesitation. Before sending them out, they repeatedly cautioned to be careful and discreet, advising that these treasures were best kept in a private collection and must never be revealed to others. On the 3rd day, a small mountain of rare and exotic treasures was piled beneath my statue. Among them, the most precious item was undoubtedly the Shongqing pearl. It was an enormous night luminous pearl. Merely lifting a corner of its lid could illuminate the entire dark room. Even more marvelous was that the patterns inside this precious pearl were interwoven, forming an image of an immortal riding a crane. In all the world, there was only one such pearl, truly a priceless treasure. I curved my lips into a smile. Your Majesty is indeed generous. Deal. When I was 5 months pregnant, I miscarried and gave birth to a stillborn fetus. The midwife took one look at it and instantly fainted from fright. Monster. The fetus was covered in white fuzz all over. Bizarre to the extreme. Thus, rumors about me being a demon consort quickly spread, growing more and more intense, reaching a fever pitch, to the point where even Pei Jing began to waver somewhat. This was exactly what Jiang Ruowei wanted to see. I was so shocked that I remained unconscious for several days. Liu Hua knelt before Pei Jing, tears streaming down her face as she pleaded, Your Majesty, anyone else may doubt Her Majesty, but you must not. This servant can testify. That night, after Her Majesty finished her meal, she went out for a walk to aid digestion. A white fox suddenly darted out on the palace path, which caused Her Majesty to be frightened and miscarry. He did not believe it. How could there be demons running rampant in the palace for no reason? Do not speak of such vague and unfounded matters before me. Yet on the 2nd and 3rd nights, more and more people claimed to have glimpsed the shadow of a white fox. It was enough to strike fear into anyone who heard of it. Some of the palace maids and eunuchs on night duty tried every means to bribe the matrons to get their shifts changed. Pei Jing had been trying to convince himself not to believe it, until he witnessed this scene with his own eyes. One day after court, he came over in his sedan chair, but at the palace gate, he ran into me, transformed into a fox. I felt as if my secret had been exposed, swiftly turning around, my feet moving like the wind. My body light as an arrow, racing toward the direction of the Empress's palace. After her, he ordered. The guards by the Emperor's side were undoubtedly masters of martial arts. Listening to the footsteps behind me, I gauged the distance, always keeping a measured gap between myself and the guards in pursuit, leading them all the way into the secret chamber in the Empress's palace. Pei Jing saw the secret chamber with his own eyes, a Buddhist shrine, incense, a fox deity statue, and countless rare treasures. These are all treasures presented by the surrounding vassal states as tribute. They should have been first selected and reviewed by the emperor before being bestowed upon other ministers or consorts. Interestingly, he had never seen any of these items before. This indicates that after tallying the tribute from various countries, the officials from the Ministry of Rites first took them to curry favor with the Jiang family before presenting them to the emperor for review. He flew into a rage. I had no idea the Jiang family's power had grown to such an extent. You don't even regard me with respect anymore, do you? Jiang Ruowei's jealousy of the imperial concubines and her use of dark arts to harm the royal heirs are proven beyond doubt, while her father and brothers have long held heavy military power. Showing contempt for imperial authority and acting tyrannically, any one of these offenses alone would be enough to bring severe punishment upon their entire family. Dressed in plain white garments, Jiang Ruowei knelt before Pei Jing, removing her hairpins to await judgment. Your Majesty, I and my father and brothers have always been loyal to you. It was only a moment of foolishness that led us to do such a foolish thing. She wept bitterly, crawling forward on her knees. Has your Majesty forgotten? Back when you were in the Eastern Palace, your position was precarious. If not for my father and brother's unwavering support, you, back then, when Consort.He was wrongfully accused and died, Pei Jing was also neglected by the late emperor for many years. His position as crown prince was fraught with anxiety. If it weren't for Jiang Ruowei's determination to marry him, providing him with a solid backing, the one sitting on the throne today might have been someone else entirely. She thought this might rekindle old feelings, but she never expected that Pei Jing would be completely enraged by these words. Don't you dare use this to threaten me. Your father and brothers have controlled military and political affairs for years, colluding with factions. And you in the harem, do you think I don't know what you've all been doing? Let me tell you, all these years, I've been more than tolerant and lenient enough with your Jiang family. What difference could it make? Even if the Jiang family had shown him the greatest kindness back then, Pei Jing was no longer the crown prince of old, living in constant uncertainty with his position hanging by a thread. Now, he had ascended to the highest throne. How could he bear Jiang Ruowei repeatedly exposing his most painful scars? Jiang Ruowei was deposed and confined to the cold palace, while her father and brother were stripped of their military authority and exiled 1,000 miles away. I am about to take her place and become the new queen. Jiang Ruowei had become somewhat mentally unhinged, grabbing the guards stationed at the cold palace every day to question them. This can't be real, right? The fox demon's magic is so powerful, how could it have been exposed so easily? The guard looked troubled, unsure how to respond. Stop arguing. I stepped into the dilapidated courtyard, rescuing those poor guards who had been entangled by her. You want to know why the plan was exposed? Let me tell you. I revealed my fox ears and tail. She was so shocked her eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets. She sat slumped on the ground for a long while before finally accepting this reality. You really are a demon. So the fox spirit I've been worshipping is actually you too. I nodded happily. Then I delivered another heavy blow to her heart. The material evidence of your father and brother's contempt for imperial authority and their corruption, it was you who handed each piece over to me. I covered my mouth and chuckled. You truly are a wonderful daughter and sister to them. Oh right, didn't you have a nightmare back then? Dreamt that your position as empress and your life would both be ruined by a woman surnamed Shen. Looking at it now, half of that has already come true. How do you know that? She suddenly turned to look at me. Back then, I sought out the most accurate master to divine and interpret the dream. He said that aside from the Shen woman in the dream, no one else could pose a threat to my position, but I had already ordered people to eliminate her long ago. Those who returned to report all said she was completely dead. So why is it still like this? As she spoke, her emotions grew increasingly agitated. That master must have miscalculated. He's nothing but a swindler pretending to be a fortune teller. Those few people. My heart felt pierced by thousands of needles. Tears had long since silently covered my face. A sudden surge of immense malice welled up from the depths of my heart. I spread my fingers wide, manipulating the demonic energy. In an instant, an invisible force wrapped around her neck, tightening and lifting, suspending her in midair. Didn't expect that, did you? The Shen Tsua you killed back then had a twin sister, me, from the moment we were born. A high monk prophesied that I was the reincarnation of a 1,000-year fox demon, destined to become a calamitous seductress and imperial consort. Watching her struggle desperately, I felt not the slightest sense of satisfaction from avenging a great wrong. Instead, an immense sorrow washed over me. It nearly shattered my heart into dust. I had been living in seclusion, cultivating my spirit in the mountains. The fame and fortune that you humans chase after, I have always held in contempt. If you hadn't killed Shen Tsua back then, I truly would have spent my whole life chanting sutras and being a good person. But what happened? My dearest, most cherished sister is dead, and I must avenge her on you. Chase, soul, bind, life. The cycle of cause and effect completes its closure at this very moment. After speaking, I released my magical power, slamming her heavily onto the ground. The matter is not yet over. Now is not the time for her to die. Before leaving, I forced a pill down her throat. With this pill, any words that come out of her mouth from now on will sound like incomprehensible gibberish to human ears. After all, the secret that I am a fox demon cannot be known by another soul. The position of empress, which Jiang Ruowei treasures so dearly that she would rather kill innocents to keep it firmly in her grasp, is something I do not want for a single moment. I was clad in a magnificent phoenix gown, wearing a heavy phoenix crown. My entire body stiff and rigid. It was time to leave. A heartless, scheming troublemaker like me would naturally spare no effort, seizing every last opportunity to secure my own interests with my final breath. So I personally orchestrated a death escape. After the coronation ceremony, I went to the Crown Prince's bedchamber as usual to inquire about his daily meals and clothing. Due to his childhood experiences, Pei Jing was unwilling to let his hatred extend to the innocent. Thus, after the Jiang clan was dealt with, Pei Yu remained seated on the throne as the Crown Prince. The Empress is the mother of all the people in the world, so even though Pei Yu always looked down on me, I still frequently inquired about his daily life. In front of outsiders, I played the part of the loving mother to perfection. Today, my phoenix robe and crown deeply wounded his young heart. He no longer concealed his disgust and hurled harsh words at me. So the palace attendants outside heard our quarrel. Your Highness the Crown Prince, Her Majesty the Queen Mother has always treated you well. How can you speak to her like this? You wicked woman, I hate you. He casually picked up a teacup and threw it at me. I cried out in pain, pretending to lose my balance, and fell sideways, incidentally knocking over the oil lamp and candlestick. The spilled lamp oil spread across the floor and instantly ignited. Flames quickly surged upward, rapidly devouring everything in sight, crackling and popping as they burned. Help! There's a fire! The Empress and the Crown Prince are still trapped inside. By the time the fire was extinguished and I was rescued, I was already on the brink of death. The palace servants who fought the fire said that, in order to protect the young Crown Prince, I had been struck by a falling beam and missed my chance to escape. At this point, there was no hope left. Pei-Jing held me in his arms, his eyes brimming with heartache and sorrow. Imagine it, a beautiful, young new empress, dressed in the most splendid brocade robes, dying at the peak of his affection for her, and in her final moments, she was generous and kind, selflessly saving the son of her enemy without holding a grudge. Ah, what could be more devastating than this? I tilted my head at a carefully calculated angle. From this perspective, my hair hung low, my eyes glistened with tears. My skin was pale as paper that could tear at a touch, and the corners of my lips were stained with blood, hauntingly beautiful. With a fragile, delicate motion, I raised my hand and cupped his face. Your Majesty, Lingji, Lingji. Pei-Jing cried out my name, weeping bitterly in utter despair. I swallowed a mouthful of bloody foam, struggling to speak. To have received your Majesty's love and care in this lifetime is a blessing I have cultivated over 3 lives. Yet now, I still have one wish left unfulfilled. I was originally an orphan, and in my childhood, I was saved by the kindness of the Shen couple. Without them, there would be no He today. However, I have also heard that their only daughter unfortunately passed away 3 years ago. Therefore, I wish to ask your Majesty for a favor on their behalf. By this point, Pei-Jing was already weeping uncontrollably. He's benefactor is also my benefactor. I will bestow fertile fields and beautiful estates upon them, so that the two may live out their remaining years in peace. After settling my final wishes, I felt at ease and faked my death. I detached my soul from my body, drifting through the sky, witnessing everything that unfolded next. At the funeral, Pei-Jing made the little prince kneel before my spirit tablet to thank me for saving his life, but to my surprise, he looked at me with utter disgust. In truth, the little prince hated me for being scheming and hypocritical, and he was absolutely right to do so. He was small in stature, making him more agile when it came to escaping. When the fire broke out, if I hadn't held him tightly in my arms, he might have already run out. Unfortunately, he is also just a 3-year-old child. He doesn't know how to endure and bide his time, let alone understand the Emperor's thoughts. He spat toward my spirit tablet with a "Phut, that poisonous woman, I hate her." Pei-Jing was immediately enraged and, without further discussion, stripped him of his crown prince position. I know that because of your mother, you have always held a grudge against the Empress, but don't forget, she has never treated you poorly and is even your savior. Such ingratitude, truly. This child is beyond teaching. Guards, remove his imperial jade register. From now on, I have no such son. The news reached Jiang Ruowei in less than half a day. She had still held on to hope, hoping to live until Pei Yu ascended the throne, to be welcomed out by him and become the Empress Dowager. But she never expected Pei-Jing to be so merciless. Not only did he remove his name from the royal jade register, but he also stripped him of his royal status, renaming him Jiang Yu. The pomegranate flower delivered my final words to him. Jiang Ruowei, oh Jiang Ruowei, watching the person you care about most suffer injustice, unable to speak in their own defense, now you can finally understand how I felt back then. She stood there in a daze for a long time, then suddenly began to weep and laugh hysterically, as if she had lost her mind, even though she had taken every precaution, exhausted every effort. Why did she still end up losing everything she held most dear? Her husband's favor, the throne of the Empress, the glory of her family. Unable to bear the blow, she completely broke down, and that very night, she dashed her head against a pillar in the cold palace and died. I hovered in mid-air, watching coldly as she breathed her last. Miming the words, I silently replied to her, "If you hadn't harbored evil thoughts and mercilessly killed an innocent person, you would never have fallen to such a state today. All of this, all of it, is nothing more than what you deserve. Epilogue. Past life. I recreated a body and returned to the Shun residence as an ordinary maid. My room, right next to my sister's boudoir, had been empty for over a decade. Now that I live here, I have converted it into a Buddhist hall. Every day, I chant sutras before the Buddha. All sentient beings, from time without beginning, have been caught in the cycle of birth and death, all because they do not know the eternal true mind, the pure and luminous nature. They rely on deluded thoughts, and these thoughts are not true, thus they revolve in samsara. Scenes from my past life unfold before my eyes. In my previous life, my sister was not yet the daughter of an official, nor did she have such a poetic and picturesque name as Shintsiue. She was called Ernie. She was an ordinary villager living in a common village at the foot of the mountain. At that time, I was only a little over 1800 years old. One day, while fighting over a spiritual herb, I got into a fierce battle with a mountain spirit that was tens of thousands of years old. Unfortunately, my cultivation was insufficient, and I quickly fell into a disadvantage. Then, just as my strength was exhausted, I fell into a trap set by the villagers. The animal trap clamped tightly onto my hind leg. I gave up struggling and lay down peacefully at the bottom of the pit. I planned to wait until I had recovered some energy before using my magic to escape. Little fox, Ernie peeked out with half her head, calling out to me over and over, ready to come to my rescue. The terrain around where I was trapped was treacherous. If the rescuer made even the slightest misstep, they could easily fall into the pit as well. Yet, she was clearly terrified to the bone. Yet, I still spoke loudly to bolster my own courage. Little fox, you must be in a lot of pain, right? Be good, don't move around, I'll come save you right away. While crawling forward cautiously, Ernie was a kind-hearted child. She helped me remove the animal trap, then gathered some herbs, chewed them up, and bandaged my wound. Just as she was about to release me back into the wild, I spoke. You saved me, so I am your fox now. You can make 3 wishes of me. She was so startled that she fell to the ground with a thud. Why you're a fox demon. Ever since my ancestor Deiji single-handedly brought down the Shang dynasty, humans and fox spirits like us have been sworn enemies. I thought she would flee in panic or call a group of villagers to hunt me down. I never expected. Instead, she grabbed me by the scruff of my neck and stuffed me into a burlap sack. Hurry up and hide. If anyone else finds you, they'll catch you and stew you for dinner. Ernie would always come to see me whenever she went up the mountain to gather firewood. Sometimes she would change the herbal medicine on my leg, sometimes she would feed me a piece of chicken tail, and sometimes she would simply come to chat, curious about what I had been doing every day for the past 1800 years. She made 2 wishes to me. The first was to live a life of abundance. The second is health and safety. As for the third wish, she has been unable to decide for a long time. Every time she comes to see me, she says, "I'll tell you next time, silly girl." Does she really think I can't see through her thoughts? The reason she has never made the third wish is that she fears once all 3 wishes come true, she will never be able to see me again. Watching her skip away, I chuckled and muttered, "Silly girl, for the third wish, I'll make it for you. I wish you happiness." Days of heavy rain had triggered a flash flood in the mountains. The earth shook and the mountains trembled, mud and sand carrying massive boulders tumbling down. In no time, the entire village would be buried, and the ghosts, monsters, and spirits in the mountains were all busy fleeing. Should I run away too? No, I can't. She wished for my health and safety. I cannot break that promise. I used my demonic power to hold back the mountain flood, and in doing so, I lost 1700 years of cultivation. After this disaster, the villagers no longer harbored hostility toward the fox demon. They revered me as the mountain god, building a temple for me, erecting a statue, and offering incense in my honor. Ernie also became one of my loyal followers. Under her adoring gaze, I devoured 3 large, greasy roast chickens in a row. Then, I finally spoke slowly. To withstand the mountain flood, I lost many years of cultivation and even missed an opportunity to ascend to immortality. So, tell me, what should be done? How will you thank me? Her eyes were sparkling. I want to be your best friend forever. No, in the next life, and the life after that. And the life after that, and the life after that, we'll always be best friends. Okay, I bit into the chicken drumstick and thought for a moment. Well, that works too. Due to my outstanding performance during cultivation, the Fairy Management Bureau made a special exception. I only need to experience one more lifetime in the mortal world, and as long as my training is completed perfectly, I can be exceptionally promoted to become an immortal. Fate is truly so serendipitous. In this lifetime, we became twin sisters. Mortals must drink Meng Po's soup to erase their memories before reincarnation, but demons do not. So when we were born together, I knew her, but she did not know me. Not long after, I was sent to Fahua Temple to devote myself to cultivation under a hidden identity, before the little Shenxiue could climb the mountain alone. The number of times we met was truly few and far between. About every 3 months, the Shen family would go up the mountain under the pretext of burning incense, reuniting as a family of 4. I remember the first words little Shenxiue said to me. Mother pointed at me, teaching her to recognize people. This is your younger sister. Her name is Lingji. I'm really curious. Would a human without memories still recognize me? She crawled up to me, opened her arms to hold my head, and mumbled a few words. Sister, smells nice. Like, I understood. Even though Shenxiue has no memories in this life, deep down, she still has instincts. She instinctively drew close to me, instinctively protected me, instinctively stuffed me into a sack. As she grew older, she could venture into the mountains alone. We started meeting more frequently. She often held me in her arms, wiping away tears. What nonsense about being a fox spirit reincarnated. It's all utter rubbish. To make my little sister suffer like this here. Sob. I looked into her clear eyes and said earnestly, it's not suffering, sister. Even if I'm confined by my identity and can't be seen, it's truly fine if I spend my whole life in this Fahua temple, eating vegetarian food and reciting Buddhist scriptures. I only wish for your happiness. The 30th year of my life in this new body, Shen's parents passed away peacefully. One after the other, Shenxiue's wishes were fulfilled, and she embarked on the path of reincarnation. As for me, my training in this human world has also come to a successful conclusion, and I am about to ascend to immortality. For the last time, I used my human body to chant scriptures before the Buddha. All sentient beings, from time without beginning, have been caught in the cycle of birth and death, all because they do not know the eternal true mind, the inherently pure and luminous essence, and instead rely on delusional thoughts. These thoughts are not real, hence the endless turning. My dear sister, whether it be the next life, the life after that, or the life after that, I only wish for your happiness. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I have been in the palace for 10 years, yet I remain a low-ranking consort without favor. Unable to compete for favor or raise my own child by my side, I had no choice but to follow the crowd and align myself with the powerful to ensure my survival. When the imperial consort was deposed and exiled, and everyone trampled on her, I was also forced to bully her third prince. But in this palace, I have always been the one bullied by others. I never learned how to bully anyone myself. I scratched my head and had no choice but to give the jujube flour cake I had made myself to the third prince. You only deserve to eat this low-class pastry. The 9-year-old third prince clutched that piece of jujube flour cake, standing quietly in the shade of the tree. His pitch-black eyes stared straight at me for a long time, as if seeing through my blustering, hollow nature. Bullying the third prince was the right thing to do, because that very night, the emperor summoned me to his chambers. Having not received the emperor's favor for half a year, I was both startled and overjoyed, hastily tidying up the dusty dressing table. When Pei Rong arrived in the evening, he didn't glance at the carefully polished pearl hairpins, paid no mind to my worn silk skirt with its frayed seams, and didn't even notice the handkerchief I was twisting nearly to shreds in my hands. He wearily closed the book and rubbed his temples. The emperor, who rarely showed his emotions, gave me an uncharacteristically gentle smile. You have been in the palace for all these years, never striving for favor, always gentle and well-behaved. That is commendable. I ask you, would you like to raise a child? My heart leaped with joy, and I nearly lost my grip on the teacup in my hand. Is my Yua coming back? Pei Rong set down the book, not pressing the matter of my presumptuous words, and only said in a low voice, "Nonsense. Yua is the Empress's child. Besides, Yua does not wish to be close to you. Do not speak such words again in the future." As he spoke, snow fell softly outside, and the crackle of the lamp wick only made the room seem even more silent. For the sake of this snow, Pei Rong was also willing to soften her expression. I remember the year you entered the palace. The snow was just as heavy. 10 years ago, when I entered the palace, everyone envied my good fortune and luck. The emperor favored the noble consort exclusively, and the newly selected beauties from a few days ago were all dismissed. Until the last day, His Majesty and the imperial consort had a quarrel and were in a bad mood. He casually pointed to me, who came from an ordinary family and was not particularly outstanding in appearance, and I became pregnant after my first night with him, giving birth to Yua. My good fortune ended right there. People in the palace all said that Yua was not like the dull and reticent Lady Wen. He was very clever, so clever that his tutor praised him, and Pei Rong was overjoyed, too clever to want to get close to me, or even acknowledge me. 2 years ago, when Yua was sent to the cunning palace to be raised, I knelt on the ground, holding Yua and shedding tears, fearing that each glance at him would be one less in the future. But the 6-year-old Yua pushed me away with a look of confusion in his eyes. Third brother's mother is Consort.He. You are just a noble lady, and you are not worthy of being my mother. When Yua said this, my heart also grew cold and sorrowful. But what mother in the world would hold a grudge against her own child? I will find a way to rise in rank, but rising in rank is difficult. The concubines in the harem compete for attention like flowers in the imperial garden. And the empress holds shears, watching over the restless branches. I am not as skilled in singing and dancing as Consort.He, nor do I have the outstanding family background of Her Majesty the Empress. If I had to name one advantage, it would be that I take after my mother in being able to make a good pot of soup. But the palace has its own kitchens, and if Pei Rong stays up late reviewing memorials, the soups and dishes sent from the small kitchens of the various consorts pile up so high that there's no room left for the memorials. When I truly miss Yua, I save up my monthly allowance and, along with the jujube flour cakes I make myself, ingratiatingly slip them to Eunuch Chiu, who takes care of Yua. Eunuch Chiu was a smooth and sophisticated man of propriety. With a beaming smile, he accepted the silver and politely declined the jujube flour cakes. Yua also always avoided me. I spent a lot of silver, but I didn't get to see her many times. Later, Yua suddenly fell ill, and it was said that the flesh and blood of her birth mother were needed as medicine. I never expected Yua to acknowledge me. I only wanted him to recover, but when Yua heard that my blood was used in the medicine, he knocked it to the ground, refusing to take it even if it meant death. How disgusting. Yua has only one mother, the Empress. What are you to me? When I knelt at the palace gate to plead for forgiveness, the Empress held Yua, who had cried himself to sleep, in her arms, not even lifting her head. Over the years, you've sent quite a few clothes and food for the 4th prince. I pitied you and chose not to make an issue of it. When Tang, by rank, You are merely a noble lady. If you truly care for the fourth prince, you should not see him again." As she spoke, Yua woke up, whining and fussing, demanding that the Empress dock my monthly allowance for half a year to teach me a lesson. I didn't dare to talk back anymore, just lowered my head and hummed in agreement. Indeed. What higher rank is there than that of the Empress? I gradually gave up the idea of taking Yua back. When I came to my senses, Pei Rong smiled gently, but left no room for refusal. "When Tang, I ask you, do you wish to raise the third prince?" "Yang, no, definitely not. Noble lady, think carefully. In this palace, what good thing isn't fought over? How could a perfectly fine prince just be handed over to you to raise for nothing?" Yua's wet nurse, Nanny Chen, is from my hometown. She doesn't have the palace habit of flattering the powerful and looking down on the lowly. She acts and speaks with a kind heart. When I first entered the palace and became pregnant with Yua, it was Mother Chen who took care of me, watching over my diet at every turn, ensuring I safely gave birth to Yua. She kept shaking her head and sighing, rambling on about how difficult it is to raise a child who has already recognized a mother, and how hard it is for stepmothers in their village. Imperial Consort has fallen out of favor, and His Majesty feels displeased when he sees the third prince. Moreover, Imperial Consort and the Empress are at odds. How could the Empress possibly treat Imperial Consort's child well? Raising the third prince is truly a thankless task for a noble lady. Not only does it fail to win the Empress' favor, but it also invites the suspicion of the Empress. Why go through such trouble? You might as well focus on taking good care of yourself and, in the future, have a child of your own to rely on. I recalled yesterday, when the snow had just cleared, the third prince stood silently in the shadow of a tree, his eyes filled with envy as he watched his siblings play. His face was pale, and his clothes were thin. It was likely that after the imperial consort was deposed, the servants and maids assigned to look after him were no longer attentive. Yua saw him and, with a mischievous grin, quickly formed a snowball and unexpectedly threw it at Yang's face. "Oh, it's third brother. I thought it was some careless little eunuch." The snowball was deliberately packed with a sharp stone, causing Yang's head to bleed. Yang's disheveled and helpless appearance, not daring to fight back, made the brothers burst into laughter. I instinctively wanted to scold Yua for her rudeness, but was met with a faint glance from Eunuch Chiu standing beside her. "The fourth prince is under the guidance of Her Majesty the Empress, so it would be best for you, noble lady, not to interfere. However, this servant must remind noble lady when circumstances are stronger than individuals. Would you dare to defy the Emperor's will?" Yua gave me a rather smug look. It has been over half a year since the imperial consort was demoted to a commoner and expelled from the palace, and Pei Rong has yet to find a suitable mother for the third prince, Yang. The Empress is wary, the Emperor is indifferent, and Pei Yang is left to be bullied. In this imperial harem, one cannot survive on conscience alone. What matters more is self-preservation. Besides, only by staying alive can I watch Yua grow up. Almost instinctively, I shoved the jujube flour cake I had prepared for Yua into Yang's hands, hurriedly recalling the words others had mocked me with when I had fallen out of favor before. "You lowly scum, you only deserve to eat this pig slop." But I was too guilty, and ended up insulting my own craftsmanship. You only deserve to eat this low-class pastry." Yang held the warm jujube flour cake, quietly and silently watching me for a long, long time, so long that it seemed as if she had seen through my blustering malice. I didn't even dare to look into the child's eyes, grabbing the food box and fleeing in panic. But after all, that child Yang is just too pitiful. It's the coldest days of winter. And with the snow melting outside, it's even colder. That child is still dressed so thinly. I really couldn't bear it in my heart, thinking of the winter clothes I had made, which Yua had refused to wear, finding them too shabby. "Nanny, if I secretly give those clothes to Yang without anyone noticing, would that be all right?" Nanny Chen glanced at me. This aunt who had long resided in the palace, having witnessed court intrigues and countless storms, suddenly sighed. Your ladyship has a kind heart, but this servant does not know whether such kindness in the palace is a blessing or a curse. Before I could think further, an imperial decree was announced outside. Pei Rong praised my virtue and placed the third prince, Pei Yang, under my name. When the eunuch delivering the decree arrived with Pei Yang through the snow, the wound on Pei Yang's head had not yet healed. He knelt outside the Caisong Palace and earnestly kowtowed to me, amid the swirling snow. This 9-year-old child knelt upright, having witnessed the fickleness of the palace and the tendency to fawn on the powerful and trample on the weak over the past 6 months. He looked up with a smile that was both ingratiating and numb. Mother, Yang knows how to help you win back favor and bring back fourth brother. Mother, you will see that Yang is useful. The imperial decree had been issued. Nanny Chen shook her head and quietly murmured a prayer for Buddha's protection. I hurriedly helped Yang up, then called for the palace maids to add more charcoal to the fire and bring some clothes. The entire Mulberry Palace was warm and cozy. I gestured at the winter clothes I had made for Yua, which actually didn't fit Yang very well. The sleeves were a bit short. Pei Yang quickly tugged at his sleeves and kept saying, "It fits perfectly. Yang really likes it. Thank you, Mother." While applying medicine to Pei Yang, I felt a pang of guilt in my heart. It's my fault for not teaching that child well. Hearing me mention Yua, Pei Yang quietly clenched his fist, then looked up with a flattering smile. Little brother just wanted to play with me. He didn't mean any harm. Besides, I'm not seriously hurt. It's nothing. Although Pei Yang kept calling me Mother Consort, it somehow made me feel strangely distant. If you're not used to it, you can call me Consort when in the Mulberry Palace, but outside, you must address me as Mother Consort. Pei Yang tightly grabbed the hem of my clothes, shaking his head desperately, afraid that I might abandon him. No, from now on, you are Yang's Mother Consort. As I watched over Yang until he fell into a deep sleep, he remained frowning and still refused to let go of my sleeve. I put down the winter clothes I was altering, smoothed the damp hair at his temples, and for some reason, felt a pang of sadness for this precocious child. Back when the imperial consort was at the height of her favor, every time Pei Yang fell ill, the emperor and the consort would stay by his side day and night. But now, he doesn't even have a warm winter coat. Just now, when he smiled at me so ingratiatingly, it seemed for no reason as if he were crying. Before leaving, Mama Chen sighed quietly. Your Grace is kind-hearted, but please don't be foolish. You must still have your own child. The sky darkened, and the cold wind howled outside. When I finished trimming the sleeves and looked up, I realized that Pei Yang had already woken up. The palace attendant brought the porridge that had been kept warm on the stove, along with the side dishes and flatbread I had made myself. Watching Pei Yang devour the food and finish every last bite, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Although the provisions in Caisong Palace may not be as abundant as in other palaces, the food here should be the best, since you can't eat foods that might aggravate your wound while it's healing. Once Yang is fully recovered, I'll let you taste your mother's cooking. Pei Yang put down his rice bowl and looked at me seriously. Mother, I have seen the noble consort favored by His Majesty, so I can help you become a favored consort. I just smiled at his words and didn't take them seriously. The women in the harem would go to any lengths to win favor, from poetry and literature to horsemanship and sword dancing. Emperor Pei Rong had no shortage of beautiful consorts. In my 10 years in the palace, I couldn't think of a way to win favor. How could a 9-year-old child possibly come up with one? Pei Yang shook his head with certainty. I know there is one thing that none of them have. Only my mother has. I didn't know what unique qualities I possessed. Otherwise I wouldn't have spent 10 years in the palace without gaining the emperor's favor. It wasn't until the 3rd night that Pei Rong sent an edict saying he would come to my Caisong Palace. I hurriedly rummaged through a few old dresses and outdated jewelry, hastily dressing myself up. Although the fabric patterns were old and the pearl hairpins had lost their luster, this was the best set I had kept. However, Yanga shook his head, saying this wasn't good, and he had another idea. A light touch of makeup, simple colored sleepwear, hair loosely tied, adorned with nothing. Yanga obediently rests on my lap, looking up and pointing at the book to ask me about the characters. A pot of sweet red bean soup is warming on the small stove, with the gentle glow of candlelight filling the room. The warm, sweet aroma of orange peel and red beans by the stove feels as cozy as an ordinary, reunited family. Mother, look how heavily it's snowing outside, following Pei Yang's gesture. I turned my head with an absent-minded smile, only to see His Majesty standing outside the window, his shoulders dusted with snow, watching me for who knows how long, perhaps to avoid disturbing this moment of peace. Even as the wind and snow howled, Pei Rong had forbidden the attending eunuchs from announcing his arrival. Meeting my smiling eyes as I turned, the emperor, who was accustomed to beauty and schemes, was left stunned for a long moment. I bowed with trepidation, and as I rose, I intended to brush the snow from Pei Rong's shoulder, only to find that most of it had already melted. But Pei Rong paid it no mind. He noticed the thick new clothes Yanga had patched halfway, observed the medicated wound on his temple, and finally, his gaze settled on the sweet red bean soup warming on the stove. Having been away from the imperial presence for so long, Yanga was more adept at reading expressions than I was. He had already ladled a bowl of the sweet soup and respectfully presented it. This was made by my mother. Father, please try it. A bowl of warm sweet soup in winter soothes the stomach and comforts the heart. Pei Rong's gaze at me also carried a faint hint of approval. You have taken great care of Yanga. I did not misjudge you. The next day, the weather cleared, and the bright sun, mingled with the snowlight from the eaves, dazzled the eyes. When I knelt to receive the imperial decree appointing me as a consort, it felt like a dream. In addition to Pei Rong's rewards, the imperial household department also specially sent a generous supply of fruits, vegetables, winter delicacies, dried meats, and 2 pheasants with brilliantly colored tail feathers. It was then that I realized even the servants from the imperial household department, who always wore stern expressions, could smile. The continuous stream of rewards from the Mulberry Palace attracted some concubines to come and visit, and even the princes like Yua, who had just finished their studies, came to see the excitement. I grabbed a handful of longans and hurriedly tried to stuff them into Yua's hands, but Yua refused to take them. He glanced at the lambs and pheasants, then saw the silks and jewels, and turned his head away disdainfully. Is that all? It's not even as good as what's in my mother's palace. What's so special about a pheasant? My uncle won a battle, and my grandfather even said he'd bring back 2 ponies for me. The princes and princesses knew that Yua was the empress's child and that her brother had achieved great military feats, so they quickly nodded in agreement. My hand, holding the longan, awkwardly froze in mid-air. Yanga tugged at my sleeve and thoughtfully took the longan from my hand. Mother, Yanga will eat. As Yanga reached out his hand, Yua caught sight of his half-patched sleeve and laughed. Third brother, you have no shame. You eat the food I won't eat, wear the clothes I won't wear, and even call the mother I won't call my own. The brothers and sisters burst into laughter and ran off, leaving Yanga speechless. I wanted to scold Yua and make him apologize to Yanga. Yua made a face and ran off in a flash. Yanga shook his head, so sensible it made my heart ache. Yanga doesn't like wearing new clothes. This one is just fine. What child doesn't like new clothes? I instructed the palace maids to carefully store those pieces of jewelry and record each one in the ledger. Yanga observed my expression and cautiously asked me, why doesn't Mother Consort try on those silks and jewelry? Is it because you don't like them? Or do you think there are too few? Mother, don't be unhappy. Yanga will help you win even more. Happy? How could I not be happy? Just these fine silks alone are enough to make Yanga some new clothes. so he doesn't have to wear US hand-me-downs anymore. I happily took Yanga's hand and held the silks up against him one by one to compare. I'll work on it these next few days. And Yanga will have new clothes to wear before the festival. Yanga held the bolts of satin in a daze, her eyes full of confusion, even her words stumbling. These are all for making clothes for me. Of course not. Yanga lowered her eyes in understanding, smiling self-deprecatingly. Of course, it's not just about making clothes. We also need to make knee pads and book bags. Let me think carefully if there's anything else I've missed. Oh, right. And that lamb meat, I need to think carefully about how to prepare it. Yanga is too thin. She needs to nourish herself well during the winter. Just now, when I measured his figure, I realized how frighteningly thin he is. Yanga stared at me in astonishment, as if unable to believe that someone would genuinely consider these trivial matters for him. He carefully touched the silk in his arms, and only then did he show a hint of a child's clumsiness. I crouched down and patted his head, feeling a bit embarrassed by my own lack of ambition. Mother doesn't dislike those pieces of jewelry, she just can't bear to wear them. It's just that your mother is thinking that she has no real skills. If in the future she falls out of favor, and you, like Yua, are no longer by her side, she can still use her jewelry to bribe someone to go and see you. Yanga stared at me for a long, long time, then very seriously made a promise. Yanga is very clever. He won't let mother fall out of favor, and he won't abandon mother either. I didn't use the equally clever Yua to argue with him. Nor did I want to tell him about how easily people's hearts change in the palace and how one can be forced into situations beyond their control. I just patted his head, affirming the sincerity of a child. Mother believes in Yanga. That night, Pei Rong chose my name card and was about to rest in my palace. Eunuch Chiu from the Cunning Palace hurried over to deliver a message. Your Majesty, the Empress has had a recurrence of her old illness. Please go and see her. When Pei Rong left, the snow outside had already stopped, and the world was clear and bright. I picked up the half-finished clothes for Yanga and continued to work on them. After Pei Rong left, Yanga stood nervously in the corner, observing my expression. Mother, don't be angry, Yanga will win father back. I placed the orange warmed by the fireside into Yanga's hands to warm them, smiling as I said, Mother is not angry, go to sleep now that His Majesty has left. There's one less person to compete with me for the late-night snack. After all, he's just a child, easily distracted by the mention of food. Yanga pulled the quilt over her head and whispered coquettishly, Then, Mother, tomorrow I want to eat scallion braised lamb. Okay, alright. At noon the next day, I stir-fried a plate of scallion braised lamb and made flatbread with beef fat. The flatbread was fried until crispy and golden on both sides. And I placed a bowl of lamb bone soup in front of Yanga. Yanga frowned slightly, glanced at me again, as if having made up her mind, and drank the soup sip by sip. In the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, Yanga suddenly began vomiting and having diarrhea, and even started breaking out in rashes all over her body. Yanga lay weakly on the bed but smiled at me, seeking praise. Mother, I am sick now, you can go and invite father to come. What use is it to invite Pei Rong? He's not a royal physician. Just as I was burning with anxiety, Eunuch Chiu was already waiting outside the Mulberry Palace, smiling as he conveyed the Empress's concern. The third prince is seriously ill. Why not wait until His Majesty finishes court, and her ladyship will help you pass the message, asking His Majesty to come to the Mulberry Palace later to check on him. I have to take care of the sick Yanga. How could I possibly have time to groom myself and attend to His Majesty? I politely replied to Eunuch Chiu, Thank you for Her Majesty's kindness, but I need to take care of Yanga, so there's no need to disturb His Majesty. Upon hearing my refusal, Eunuch Chiu's smile froze on his face, and he left in disappointment. The imperial physician prescribed 2 doses of medicinal soup, but by evening, there was still no improvement. For some reason, I always feel like Yanga is hiding something from me. I quickly sent someone to fetch Nanny Chen, who was experienced in caring for children, first inquired about Yanga's diet and then asked if he had caught a cold. After ruling out all possibilities one by one, Nanny Chen also found Yanga's illness to be quite puzzling. Why doesn't mother send someone to invite father? Yanga lay in bed, looking at me uneasily. Is it because I'm not sick enough? Upon hearing this, Nanny Chen's expression changed. She quietly pulled me aside and lowered her voice. Do you know why the imperial consort was deposed? I had heard some rumors about the imperial consort falling out of favor. It is said that the imperial consort used aphrodisiacs to maintain the emperor's favor, but this also harmed the emperor's ability to have many heirs. It is said that the imperial consort used the princes to vie for favor, mistreated Yanga, and sought the emperor's pity. Upon hearing that the empress was going to help me invite Pei Rong, Matron Chen was filled with lingering fear and kept chanting prayers. Noble lady, the rumors you've heard are all true. Amitabha, if you had just gone to invite His Majesty, I'm afraid in His Majesty's eyes, you would be just like the noble consort, both harboring malicious intentions to use children to vie for favor. I only felt a chill running down my spine. Seeing my fear, Yanga looked at me with confusion in his eyes. Why is mother not happy that I'm sick? In the past, whenever he fell ill, the noble consort would be pleased, recalling how terrified Yanga was trembling after Pei Rong left yesterday. Perhaps if Pei Rong couldn't stay, Yanga would face the noble consort's beatings. My heart ached, and I couldn't bring myself to blame him for his well-intentioned but misguided efforts. I explained the stakes clearly, tucked him in, and gently told him, because Yanga is sick, mother is very worried. When Yanga gets better, mother will be happy. Pei Yang lowered his eyes, trying to understand whether my happiness and the noble consort's happiness were truly the same thing. I gently placed the hot water bottle on Yanga's stomach and asked him softly, tell mother, why did Yanga get sick? He laughed heartily. Yanga always gets like this after eating scallions and lamb. It's nothing serious. I've had it before. Lamb isn't arsenic at most. It'll make you uncomfortable, but it won't kill you. The lamb my mother makes is better than what the noble consort's palace used to serve. My mother treats me very well, so I was genuinely happy while eating it. Really, when he said that, the old scar on my wrist from cutting flesh to cure Yua's illness also ached faintly along with my heart. Yanga's voice grew softer and softer. In the end, he fell silent. He covered his bitter sorrow and wailing sobs with the quilt. Why do all the other siblings have mothers who dote on them so much? Why even you, Consort Wen, are so kind to me? Only she doesn't like Yanga. A wave of bitterness washed over my heart. I don't know how to explain love and hate to a 9-year-old child. It's like scallions and mutton, which make Yanga feel unwell. But this isn't something Yanga can decide. So you can't blame yourself. Everything in this world has its reason. Just as flowers and grass have their seasons, and fruits have their time, love and hate are like a person's spleen and stomach. With no logic to speak of, to comfort him, and to comfort myself, Yanga cried herself to exhaustion and fell asleep in my arms. He had a nightmare, and in his dream, he whispered a very soft apology to me. Yanga has recovered from his illness, and the tutor has urged him several times to go to the study. But he has been evasive and unwilling to go. I suspect that Yua is the one leading the bullying against Yanga, forbidding the other siblings from playing with him. Children of this age all crave playmates, but last time when I brought Yua some jujube flower cakes, I saw Yanga standing alone in the shadows of the trees, watching his siblings play with envy. It was fourth brother who wanted me to kneel on the ground and bark like a dog before he would let me join in, Yanga said, pretending to be magnanimous as he waved his hand. It didn't matter before, my clothes were already dirty anyway, but these clothes were made for me by mother, who stayed up all night sewing them. I can't bear to get them dirty. The world of children can be as complex as a royal harem. I spent several days working hard, then slipped some silver to Nanny Chen, begging her to do me a favor. Nanny Chen had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. As she handed me the items, she kept grumbling at me. For the sake of a child who came into your life halfway, is it worth putting yourself through such torment? When Pei Rong arrived in the afternoon, she lifted the curtain to find the room filled with the sweet scent of syrup. On the bed lay half-cut clothing patterns, while on the table, a vase held pheasant tail feathers, with a few copper coins scattered nearby. By the small stove, Yang Yang and I were surrounded by a circle of fluffy heads. As the princes and princesses chattered and argued, Lady Wen, Yua wants the butterfly one. Lady Wen, I want 2 sugar paintings. Holding the sugar painting, I deliberately frowned with a troubled expression. But all these sugar paintings belong to third brother. Lady Wen can't make the decision. The clever 5th princess, Yua, immediately hugged Pei Yang's arm and gently pleaded, "Third brother, could you please help Yua beg Lady Wen for me?" With Yua as an example, a circle of younger siblings gathered around Yang. It was the first time Yang had been approached so closely by his siblings, and his pale face showed a hint of bewilderment. He looked at me for help. I placed the sugar painting in Yang's hand and gave him an encouraging nod. Yang, there are many emotions in this world that can be obtained without sacrificing self-respect or hurting oneself. I also worry that Yang may not be able to take this step, but people are small, and their memories are few. Yang truly resembles his elder brother's generous demeanor, earnestly sharing the sugar painting with his younger siblings. He even gave his own portion to Yua, instructing her, "Please take this to 4th brother Yua. Yua, don't sneak a bite." Yang turned back, eager for my praise. I could see his habitual attempt to please. Yang, ask yourself, do you really want to give this sugar painting to 4th brother? Or are you just afraid of upsetting Mother Consort? Yang fell silent, and after a long while, she whispered softly, "I don't want to give it, but I'm afraid of upsetting Mother Consort." I took the sugar painting that Yua was holding for Yua and returned it to Yang's hand. Yang, it's because you ignore your own feelings that your mother is unhappy. This is Yang's thing. If Yang doesn't want to give it, then she doesn't have to. Yang nodded vigorously, biting the candy in her hand with a crisp sound. I turned my head and saw Pei Rong standing behind the screen, and hurriedly knelt down to pay my respects. Pei Rong waved off the formalities and asked with interest what we were doing, making shuttlecocks, drawing sugar paintings, and cutting clothes. Pei Rong examined the crooked sugar painting, which stirred some childhood memories, and smiled. "You really know how to play with children. Yesterday, I heard the Empress complain a bit, saying that the princes and princesses loved to run to the Mulberry Palace. I was worried that something had happened. I was afraid that Pei Rong would think Yang was indulging in trivial pursuits and losing his ambition, and even more afraid that Pei Rong would think I was deliberately using the children to vie for favor." I hurriedly explained, "It was originally made for my own amusement, but I couldn't just let the children watch with longing eyes." Seeing Pei Rong arrive, the children also became more reserved, shrinking back and not daring to laugh or talk. Pei Rong had a hint of a strict father's helplessness. "It seems I have disturbed your enjoyment." At a glance from Chief Eunuch Li, who served before the emperor, the matrons from each palace led the princesses and princes back.
"You are more like a queen who embodies the grace of a mother to the world than the Zhao family." The handling of the Zhao family, the maternal clan of the empress, took place during the Mid-Autumn Festival 2 years later. First, General Zhao, returning to his residence drunk on a rainy night, inexplicably drowned in a shallow puddle of water. With the concerns of the previous court resolved, old cases from the inner palace were easily brought to light again. Pei Rong was furious that the emperor had demoted the imperial consort to a commoner, but the empress, defying the imperial will, secretly poisoned the consort with arsenic. The crimes of harming the prince and murdering the imperial consort were all brought to light against the empress. The day before the empress was placed under house arrest, an unexpected visitor arrived at my Caishiang Palace. It was Yua. He flatteringly carried the food box outside the Mulberry Palace. just as I had once stood in the snow waiting for him. Mother, Yue wishes to return to your side. He is smarter than Yang, so smart that it frightens me. I refused to see him. Only sending a message through the palace maid, fourth prince, please return. With my background, I am not worthy to be your mother. Yet, feeling a pang of reluctance, she instructed the palace maid to escort him back. Yue then turned to her brother Yang, placing the food box in his hands. Third brother, please help me beg mother. Yang didn't want to put me in a difficult position, so she accepted the food box and agreed. However, the food sent by Yue was poisoned. Fortunately, arsenic tastes bitter and sour, and Yang didn't eat much, so it didn't endanger her life. Pei Rong has already handed the phoenix seal to me. Cleaning up the remnants of the Zhao clan has left him with no time to deal with the dirty affairs of the harem, so he has left it to me to handle on my own. When the decree to strip her of her title and confine her to the detached palace was announced, Pei Yu cursed in disbelief. What mother in this world doesn't love her child? How can you give birth to me and then abandon me? He is just the low-born son of a deposed consort. While I am your own flesh and blood, I used to be just like Yang, doing many foolish things to keep the one I loved most by my side. I would scrimp and save, sacrifice my own well-being, and even stand in the snow all day just to catch one more glimpse of him. That day, when Yang cried her heart out under the covers, it felt as if I were seeing myself. Yang gently wiped away my tears. Mother, don't be sad. Yang will always be by your side, forever and ever. After the new year, Pei Rong established me as the empress and entrusted me with the tasks of raising the prince and preparing for the selection of new consorts. You are more virtuous than the former Zhao clan. In the future, when new consorts bear sons, they will also be raised in your palace. Yang heard this and asked me very seriously, will father send his new children to mother to raise? Then mother won't have only Yang by her side anymore, right? I thought that since Pei Rong had said so, it must be reliable. Seeing me say this, Yang nodded. I get it now. I thought Yang was just asking casually and didn't take it to heart. But as soon as the decree for the grand selection was issued, Pei Rong gradually fell ill, and the imperial physician said it was poisoning. After investigating back and forth, the arsenic clue pointed to the deposed empress's palace. Adding another charge to Lady Zhao's crimes, a country cannot be without a ruler for a day, and Yang, under my name, is the rightful crown prince. On the day Yang ascended the throne, it happened to be my birthday. He winked and told me he had prepared a grand gift for me. A carriage carried me out of the high palace walls, swaying just as it had 13 years ago when it brought me into the palace. The carriage stopped at a household, the gate wide open, and an unfamiliar maid led me out of the carriage. The furnishings in the room remained unchanged, with a steaming bowl of duck leg and bamboo shoot soup and a plate of fried meatballs on the table. I turned around abruptly to find my father and mother, whom I hadn't seen in 13 years, standing behind me with graying hair, gazing at me with affection. My mother, her eyes brimming with tears, scolded me with a smile. Where have you been fooling around? Why are you back so late? Pei Yang's side story. My mother hates me. She always says that after giving birth to me, her beauty and favor were never the same as before, so when father didn't come to see her, she took out all her resentment on me. Once, mother was so angry that she punished me by making me stand in the courtyard in just a single layer of clothing. I fell ill from the cold, and father was so worried that he came to mother's palace every day to check on me. After father left, mother stared at me for a long time, so long that I began to feel scared. Suddenly, she hugged me tightly as if she had found a treasure. The scent of powder and rouge from my mother's embrace reminded me, only a sick Yang is useful. From then on, I often fell ill. By the sickbed, my mother's makeup was exquisite, playing the role of an anxious, loving, yet still beautiful mother, which stirred my father's affection every time I recovered from an illness. My father's favor and rewards would arrive together. There were dazzling jewels and eye-catching silks. My mother would try on each piece in front of the mirror, admiring her own beauty. However, as more children were born in the palace, my father gradually lost patience with a prince who was always sick. My mother, the imperial consort, somehow obtained a secret medicine that was said to ensure her constant favor and prevent the emperor from having any more heirs. However, the secret medicine did not bring her favor. Instead, it cost her life. This time, I fell so ill that I was nearly at death's door, and even that was of no use. The emperor despised my mother, the imperial consort, and would not even see me. In a very cold summer, the emperor only said to demote my mother to a commoner, but the empress secretly put arsenic in the commoner's food. Yet, for some reason, as I stared fixedly at my mother vomiting blood, I didn't shed a single tear. Leaning against my mother's gradually cooling body, I carefully lay down and smiled contentedly. For the first time, my mother did not push me away. She held me gently and tenderly in her arms for a long, long time, just as I had always hoped. After that, my life took a turn for the worse. I ate spoiled food and wore tattered clothes. I need to find myself a favored concubine. The high-ranking consorts are all very clever. No one is willing to associate with the child of a deposed consort. But I never considered following noble Lady Wen, because she is too foolish. She clearly knows that bribing eunuch Cho with silver is like throwing meat buns to a dog. It was clear that Pei Yu simply refused to acknowledge her, yet she still carried the pastries and waited in the snow, hoping to catch a glimpse of Pei Yu. Everyone in the palace knew that the empress had no children of her own. So she had her eyes on Consort Wen's child. The emperor also tacitly approved of the empress's intentions, so the fourth brother born to Consort Wen was never registered under her name from the start. Otherwise, she wouldn't have given birth to a prince and still be an insignificant noble lady. In the past, she wasn't sent to the empress's palace to be raised because the empress still hoped to have a child of her own. You only deserve to eat this low-grade pastry. I could see right through her. She had never bullied anyone before and didn't know that real bullying meant throwing spoiled pastries on the ground and calling me lowly. The jujube flour cake in my hand is warm. I lowered my head and took a bite. It was very sweet, not a low-grade snack. Eunuch Cho told the empress that noble Lady Wen went to see the fourth prince again today. This displeased the empress, who then told the emperor that Consort Wen wanted a child, and that the third prince was still in need of a mother. And so, in a daze, I became Consort Wen's child. But it didn't matter. I would first step on her to find myself a better mother. Perhaps because I was always watching my mother's expressions, I became very good at reading people. I know that Lady Wen wants to gain favor and wishes to have Pei Yu back. I know that my father dislikes the domineering nature of the central palace and desires a gentle, obedient, and virtuous queen who can serve as a model for the nation. It was not easy for my father to be captivated by her glance back on a snowy night, and he rewarded her with silks and jewels. I want her to dress up well and first solidify her favor. She had someone put away the jewelry, then crouched down, holding each piece of satin against me one by one. I'll work on these over the next few days, so Yang can have new clothes to wear before the festival. I stood there in a daze, holding the bolts of satin, so bewildered by her foolishness that I could barely speak. These are all for making clothes for me? Of course not. I breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed she wasn't beyond all hope of redemption. Of course, it's not just about making clothes. We also need to make knee pads, book bags, and more. Let me think carefully to see if I've missed anything. I wanted to make one last attempt. Yang is very clever. She won't let her mother fall out of favor. And she won't abandon her mother either. So you dress yourself up first to secure favor. She didn't understand my hint at all, just patted my head and told me she believed in my sincerity and wouldn't abandon me. But I don't want her anymore, because she lacks the ability. And the empress easily took away the favor she had just gained. Yet she didn't get angry with me. Instead, she even gave me 2 oranges to warm my hands. Thinking about my late-night snack, furious, I pulled the quilt over my head and came up with another plan. I deliberately fell ill to make her go and invite my father. My father would surely be furious, thinking she had ulterior motives just like my mother, and would then assign me to another consort. But I miscalculated again. She didn't use my illness to win favor. Instead, she stayed up all night, anxiously watching over me by my bedside, her soft, slightly cool hand repeatedly checking my forehead, with reddened eyes full of self-blame. She scolded herself for her carelessness. I stared at her blankly. It was the first time someone had shed tears for me. How strange. I wanted to say, "Don't cry, I deliberately framed you because I wanted to change to another mother," but what reached my lips was the gently blown, warm medicinal soup. I want to add one more thing. It's the warm, sweet roasted orange segments. It left me utterly speechless. No matter what, when my mother passed away, I didn't shed a single tear. I thought I had forgotten how to cry, but why, when I saw her eyes, did tears suddenly fall like rain? It must be that the medicine was too bitter. It must be that being sick was too painful. Otherwise, how could I blame that piece of orange for being too sweet? While she stayed up late making new clothes for me, I still wanted to sneak a few more glances at her. But the quilt didn't carry the strong scent of cosmetics. Instead, it had the faint fragrance of soap pods. It made me fall into a deep sleep without even realizing it. It seems Mother misunderstood. I didn't play with those brothers and companions because I found them foolish, especially Peiyu, whose foolishness is truly laughable. But Mother held the sugar painting, looking at me with eyes full of expectation. I sighed softly in my heart. All right, as long as she's happy. However, Mother's gentleness made the Emperor look at her in a different light. In the Queen's palace, he was a husband overshadowed by his wife's illustrious family. In the Consort's palace, he was a ruler indulging in beauty and capriciousness. Here with Mother, he could be a father from an ordinary family. I could sense the emotion in Father Emperor's eyes when he saw Mother surrounded by a group of children. "Father, you see, the current Empress is not fit to be the mother of all under heaven. The struggles within the palace never cease for a moment. Arsenic is bitter and sour. To make someone consume it, they must either take it willingly or have it mixed with honey. I am well aware that the food Peiyu sent is poisoned, but Mother taught me, if Yanga doesn't want to give something, she doesn't have to. Mother belongs to Yanga, and Yanga doesn't want to give her away. Getting rid of one Peiyu isn't enough. Father wants to take in more concubines. If one day my mother falls out of favor, I will likely be assigned to another palace. It's fine. Arsenic can also be mixed into sweet soup. After ascending the throne, I brought my maternal grandparents to the capital, making it easier for them to visit my mother in the palace. After all, the warmth my mother gave to Yanga, Yanga wants to give it back to her. After all, the same soup, whether made in the palace or at home, is never quite the same. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.